Imagine you're out on the open sea with no map, just a compass and the changing weather as your guide. You notice clouds forming on the horizon, small, faint, but they're there. Do you wait for the storm to hit, or do you adjust your course now? As a vigilant leader, this is your role, interpreting early signals and making decisions before the storm arrives. In leadership, weak signals are those early clouds on the horizon. But interpreting those signals, deciding whether they're just passing clouds or the start of a major storm, requires a special skill set. This process of turning weak signals into strategic decisions is what separates reactive leaders from proactive ones. In this lesson, we'll explore how you can sharpen your ability to interpret these signals and make smart, forward-thinking decisions that benefit your organization. Information is everywhere. Data, market trends, customer feedback, but raw data alone doesn't tell you what to do. The key to interpreting signals lies in context. A weak signal in one context may mean nothing, while in another, it could be the first sign of major disruption. The challenge for a vigilant leader is to place these signals in the right context and determining their significance. For example, imagine you're leading a retail company, and you notice a small but growing number of customers are purchasing more eco-friendly products. At first glance, this might seem like a niche market trend, but when placed in the broader context of growing environmental concerns, sustainability regulations, and the increasing focus on corporate social responsibility, this weak signal could indicate a much larger shift in consumer behavior. By interpreting this signal in context, you can make an informed decision to expand your sustainable product lines, positioning your company ahead of the competition. One of the biggest challenges in interpreting signals is that they often come in fragments. A customer complaint here, a dip in sales there, a new competitor entering the market. On their own, these signals may not seem significant, but when you start connecting the dots, they often form a pattern. Now, let's say you're running a software company, and you start noticing a few weak signals. Users are complaining about the complexity of your interface. A new competitor is offering a more intuitive user experience, and your customer retention rate is slipping. These might seem like isolated issues, but if you put them together, they reveal a bigger picture. Your software isn't meeting the evolving expectations of your users. By recognizing this pattern early, you can make strategic decisions to simplify your product and stay ahead of competitors. Ignoring these signals, however, could lead to bigger problems down the line, as customers leave for more user-friendly alternatives. Netflix's transformation from a DVD rental company to a global streaming giant is a perfect example of interpreting weak signals. In the early 2000s, Netflix noticed a small but growing shift in consumer preferences. More people were starting to stream content online, thanks to the rise of broadband internet. At the time, streaming was still in its infancy, and many in the entertainment industry dismissed it as a fad. But Netflix's leadership saw the weak signals and understood their significance in the broader context of changing media consumption habits. Rather than waiting for streaming to go mainstream, Netflix pivoted its business model early, investing heavily in digital infrastructure and original content. Their ability to interpret these early signals and act on them allowed Netflix to dominate the streaming industry, while traditional competitors who ignored the signals struggled to catch up. Now, sometimes the signals of change are small, but when placed in the right context and connected to broader trends, they can point to huge opportunities. The key is to interpret these signals early and make bold decisions before others do. Now, one of the hardest parts of interpreting signals is deciding when to act. Now, not every signal requires immediate action, and jumping too soon can waste resources or lead to missed opportunities. But waiting too long can leave you vulnerable to disruption. So how do you strike the right balance? Start by evaluating the level of risk associated with the signal. Ask yourself these questions. How credible is the signal? Is it coming from a reliable source, or is it based on speculation? How widespread is the signal? Is it a one-off occurrence, or are you seeing the same signal in multiple places? What's the potential impact? If this signal turns into a major trend, how will it affect your business? Is the risk high or low? And also ask, how quickly is the landscape changing? In fast-moving industries, you may need to act quickly on weak signals. In slower-moving industries, you might have more time to observe before making a decision. By asking these questions, you can better assess whether a weak signal is worth acting on now or whether you can afford to wait and gather more information. Now, once you've interpreted a signal and decided it's worth acting on, the next step is figuring out the best course of action. One of the most effective tools for this is scenario planning. This involves creating multiple what-if scenarios based on how the signal might evolve and preparing strategies for each outcome. For example, let's say you've identified a weak signal that suggests a potential disruption in your supply chain, perhaps due to rising tariffs or geopolitical tensions. Rather than waiting to see how the situation unfolds, you can create several scenarios. Scenario 1, the disruption is minor and you only need to make small adjustments to your supply chain. Scenario 2, the disruption is moderate and you need to find alternative suppliers. Scenario 3, the disruption is severe and you need to overhaul your entire supply chain strategy. By planning for each scenario, you're prepared to act no matter how the situation develops. This gives you the flexibility to respond quickly when the signal turns into a reality. But mind you that even the best leaders can't predict the future with complete accuracy. But what vigilant leaders can do is stay agile, ready to pivot when new signals emerge or when a situation changes. Take the case of the COVID-19 pandemic. Few businesses saw it coming, but those that were agile enough to pivot quickly were able to survive and even thrive. Companies that could rapidly shift to remote work, e-commerce, or digital services adapted faster than those that were slow to react. Agility is about being prepared to change course even when your original plan seemed solid. It's about keeping your options open, staying flexible, and acting quickly when new information comes to light. Vigilant leaders who cultivate this mindset are better positioned to navigate uncertainty and turn challenges into opportunities. Now let's take a look at a real-world example. When the COVID-19 pandemic hit, the travel industry was devastated, and Airbnb was no exception. Bookings plummeted, and it seemed like a dire situation for the company. But Airbnb's leadership quickly recognized a signal amidst the chaos. People were looking for longer stays, often in more remote locations as they adjusted to remote work and social distancing. Rather than waiting for traditional travel to resume, Airbnb pivoted its strategy, focusing on promoting longer-term stays and vacation rentals in less populated areas. This quick interpretation of shifting consumer behavior allowed Airbnb to recover faster than many other companies in the travel sector. So the lesson here is that even in a crisis, there are signals that can guide your decisions. By staying agile and responsive, you can adapt to changing conditions and find new opportunities even in the face of disruption. So interpreting signals is one of the most critical skills of a vigilant leader. It's not enough to simply gather information. You need to connect the dots, place signals in the right context, evaluate the risks, and make strategic decisions that position your organization for success. In the next lesson, we'll explore how to develop contingency plans that allow you to respond to future challenges with confidence. But for now, think about the signals you've been noticing in your industry or organization. How can you interpret them in context? And what patterns are emerging? The decisions you make today based on those signals could determine your success tomorrow.